everyone, it's Margaret Manning here with 60andMe. This is the place where women who are aging beautifully come to be inspired. And we are going to be inspired tonight by Dr. John Medina. Dr. Medina is a developmental molecular biologist. He has had a lifelong fascination with the brain, and he's written a best-selling book called Brain Rules. He's also written one on for babies called Brain Rules for Babies. And then his last book is called Brain Rules for Aging Well. He is an affiliate professor of bioengineering at the University of Washington, and he describes himself as a curious scientist, consultant, author, and speaker. So welcome to the show, Dr. Medina.
Oh, thanks. It's fun to talk to you again.
It's great. We talked 4 years ago, and this is kind of a follow-up to that and all the amazing things you've done with this new book, this new one, Brain Rules for Aging Well.
Yeah.
You know, we have women in our community over 60, and we are all very interested in what we can do to stay active and keep our brain healthy and well. And we've got some questions for you, but tell us, what do you think we can do to protect and enhance our brain?
Sure. Well, there's 12 things that you can actually say. I made about 10 of them into Brain Rules, but there's a number of things that you can say in the literature, some of which are really well established, some of which are brand new, that allow us to understand what we can do. Shall we do with the old stuff first and then kind of go into the new? Or
let's do that. Let's start with the basic stuff that we should know, maybe people know about. Let's do that.
Well, everybody knows you should do some exercise. That's for sure. But interestingly enough, not strengthening. No, it's exercise. Yes, There's good reasons to do strengthening. There totally is, particularly if you're a postmenopausal woman. But if you want to improve your brain, strengthening is not going to do it, oddly enough.
Wow.
But aerobic exercise will. 30 minutes of moderate aerobic activity every day, 5 days a week, is going to do it. I'll bet most of your listeners know this. It's old literature, well established. That's where I call it the usual suspects. But what's interesting, what a lot of folks don't know, is how little you have to do to get the cognitive benefit.
Yeah.
For people like me, I've lived my whole life, with test tubes and laboratories and sitting around in meetings talking about science. I don't necessarily want to get on a treadmill for 5 hours a day.
So is walking okay? Brisk walking?
Right. A moderate aerobic activity is walking too fast to sing. Okay? So if you want to maintain cognitive health, it's about 5,000 steps. At a moderate.
All right. Okay.
If you want to lose weight, if there's a need to lose weight, you would double that. You would go
so exercise is a basic. Okay.
So that's well known. Here's another one usually well known, and that is, although I have to say this was a first for me, Margaret, a very particular type of diet to follow. The reason why I say first is because I've watched the dietary literature for a long, long time, and hopefully I'm a nice guy, but I'm a really grumpy son, and this stuff just would make me. Because it would be a fad, do this protein, do this vegetable, stay away from this carb or add more carbs. Yeah. There's fads that go on and off. And you ask the question, where does this stuff come from? And the peer-reviewed literature it's almost wasteland. In the United States, dietary research is woefully underfunded. And it's extraordinarily complex. I mean, one glass of wine has 150 biochemicals in it. We don't know how most interact with each other do. It wasn't until I wrote Brain Rules for Aging Well that I did it first.
Okay.
Because there is. And it's really strong. It's in the peer review. It's been replicated. They had to do a root canal statistically because the original problem. But it came back up. It's beautiful. Get thee to a Mediterranean diet and don't stay away from it. Every way that you can. And I know you know that, and I'll bet your listeners do too, but I'm here to tell you from the sciences, the other diets, and I'll take the lawsuit. I'm from the United States. We live with
Yeah, I've heard that many times, the Mediterranean diet. So fish, olive oils, fresh vegetables, tomatoes.
Yep. Eat sparingly, mostly plants.
Seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? And they actually do drink glasses of wine at Zenith. I mean, they don't deny themselves drinking either.
And you don't have to stay on it all the time. That's also kind of
important. That's a great point. Yeah.
One of the other things what's true about the dietary literature is that's often completely left out are the emotions people bring to food.
Yes. Yeah.
You really understand that if you deny too much, you slip into your depressions or anxiety. You just go, I'm so tired of this. I'm going to eat chocolate for a week, and you binge off of it.
Right.
You didn't allow a certain reward. So I recommend to folks that you have one day that's kind of a splurge day. Oh, you can have a meal or two, like on a Sunday or something, where let's break out the Baron of roast beef and the Yorkshire pudding.
And the cheesecake. Cheesecake's okay on this Verge Day. Yeah. But again, it's a good reminder that plant-based diets are really where it's at. Mediterranean is the broader category, but any plant-based diet, anything that's not processed foods and it's healthy. That's so exercise and diet. Got that. check.
So those are the usual suspects. Okay.
Yeah.
But now the not so usual suspects, and it's some of the brain rules I have as the first chapter, something about friendships, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, here's one. This is from Denise Parks. It's great work. When you are aging, something called episodic memory begins to erode. Episodic memory is a memory for episodes. Like if it has a timestamp with it, usually there's a character that's interacting, just like an episode.
A story. Yeah.
You start to erode that. And so Denise Parks asked the question, is there a way to arrest that development? And there is. And it's hysterical.
Okay, tell me.
This is going to be perfect for your British listeners.
Okay.
I want to immediately invoke Brexit. In my world, it would be Donald Trump. Okay, here we go. You have to have a friend that you think the world of, and it would be very difficult to break that friendship. Okay, so you have an assumed pro-social interactions, but you violently disagree with them on a topic, like leave
politics. Yeah.
Vote for our current clown, forgive me, or not.
We'll edit that part. No, but I mean, it's a good point. I mean, it's really good, but I know what you're going to tell us because we shared this before, but go ahead. It's a really good point.
Right. Well, Denise Parks, you can actually, what's interesting about this is episodic memory improves by 600% if you do that. So it isn't just that you have friendships. It's the things that you do in the interior of those friendships that ends up being extraordinarily important. Another one that the book talks about is, and you can combine and mix and match those people who read dead tree books. I'll be specific about that.
Real paper books.
Real paper books, yeah. Or single-use electronics, like a Kindle, where it isn't getting your email and all the.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I'm going with this, so that you have to concentrate on it. If you read, I think for as little as 3.5 hours per week, you are 23% less likely to die of what we call all-cause mortality.
Which is
a dead tree book, and that's everything. So anything that you can die of, you could die of. We call it all cause. For the vast majority, when you get older, it's vascular or cancer.
Right. Okay. Wow. But 23%, that's a huge number.
It's gigantic. Yeah. Wow. That's why I talk about it in the book. And it's 3.5 hours per week. Here's one of the reasons why we think this happens. When you read a book, and by the way, it's better if you read good literature. So we want Hilary Mantel as opposed to Daniel Steele. Okay?
Right. Okay.
Somebody that really knows their way around a paragraph, so that you have the ability to enter into the interior of their worlds. What that does, Margaret, is that it decenters you. For the time when you are fully engaged in that book, you're no longer thinking about your arthritis again. So it's the same.
Wow. Yeah. So John, can you actually? What about reading online? Does that count? Online?
No. Grumpy silence. But I'll tell you what. That's not perfect. What you don't want to have, because you need to have a sustained focus. It really is going to be. Is going to be better than For Whom the Bell Tolls. I mean, you want big things that you can get into. But here's the reason: you don't want to be distracted. You need to spend a fair amount of time on Middle Earth, if that's your thing. Mm-hmm. You need to spend a lot of time with it in order to get the benefit.
Okay.
If you are constantly distracted, that's why I say the word dead tree, because it's a single use. Right. It's not possible for you to take an email when you're reading it, Wolf's Hall in its native form, right?
Yes. Okay.
Fan. But any of them. William Faulkner is the same. It's a nice, engaging something that's big enough that distracts you, makes you less depressed. And when you are less depressed, you're less likely to die of cardiovascular disease and cancer. And so, ergo, and we now know the number you have to do.
23. Wow.
It's a 20%.
So John, what about audiobooks?
Fine.
Audio's good. Okay, because I do that a lot.
Yeah, sure. Well, excellent, Margaret. But the key we think, and this is not proven, but the suggestion is strong, so make sure I say that correctly, is something we call virtual transposition. when you are reading a rich environment that a Tolkien can produce, or a Mantell or a Faulkner, you virtually when you start reading, you start imagining yourself in it, right? You start thinking what that dog looks like, what that smell is like, what that person interacting. We call that virtual transposition. That's you virtually, I'm not in 17th century, 16th century, 15th century England. No, I'm not. But man, I sure think I am for a period of time.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And that decenters you. And when you are decentering, you're no longer thinking of arthritis, and so you become at less risk for vascular disorders. That's why we think all of them. That's why we think it's happening. We actually think reading de-stresses people.
That's incredible. Okay, that's a good one, because a lot of our women do read, avid readers. This is a good thing, everybody who's watching that knows that they're reading book right now or listening to an audio tape or whatever. Oh, that's a very good one. That's one I did not know. So what else have we got? What other ones?
Okay. Well, we were going to talk about dancing. Do you want to talk about dancing?
Yeah, let's talk about dancing.
Okay. Dancing probably focuses three big issues all at once in a single activity, which is how you can get a statistical spike with it, we think, per se. First of all, when I was writing the book, I would sometimes go into assisted living facilities or skilled care facilities.
Right.
And my heart would break. And I would ask some of these folks that they're almost frozen in time. They would say, what was the single hardest thing about your life right now? What's different?
Right.
And to a person, every time I went, I think I went about 5 or 6 times, particularly to certain skilled facilities, they felt like they were invisible to people. Mm-hmm. Wow. People talk past them, or they would treat them there would be an infantile, like talk louder and simple vocabulary.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't have this great fund of knowledge inside them. And the other thing that was with the invisibility is that there was no longer any non-exploitive or non-medical touching.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
When they were touched at a medical exam. Yeah. Much left alone. So, and if they're sitting around not doing anything, and you can be active even in a wheelchair, then you're not doing a whole lot of movement at all. And of course, there's not going to be any social interactions. And guess where I'm going with this? You're
going to go get together and have a dance now and again.
Dancing gives you non-exploitive touching. That's for sure. Dance gets you off your butt, even if you just cut for a little bit. It's gonna,
yes.
And here's the magic, which we talked about in the first segment. Yeah. You have a ritualized social interaction. Yeah, you got to get close to somebody and smell their breath and feel their you're gonna have an interaction that's gonna, and unless you are so freaked out by the experience that you end up looking far away and not doing it, you've got the trifecta going all at once with dancing. And when you do that with dancing, you see all kinds of things begin to improve. You get
that's so funny.
I think it's a 37% reduction in the amount of falls that people do, because it's because of vestibular activity, which is balance, their ability to balance. Now, you not only have to move, you got to coordinate with somebody else. So it's none of this wiggle in front of each other dancing, okay? You got to do something. Where you're coordinating with somebody else, and that causes you to continue, the brain has to continually access center of gravity issues and is continually responding.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great.
That is such a brain vitamin, Margaret. I'm in favor of dancing. Not because dancing is a thing, but because it does all three at once.
I was reading somewhere something about when you cross over too, like when you do dancing that involves crossing over, that there's something about using both sides of your body or your brain or something. Is that real? No, just
stuff. It was also midline crossover exercises that somehow improve your reading scores or math scores.
Okay, we'll forget that one. All right, that's not in the Brain Rules for Aging Well book. So what else have we got? You've got a couple that are kind of interesting, like gratitude and mindfulness. I thought were really wonderful, because I'm a big believer in that too.
Sure. Well, let's take gratitude, and then let's talk about mindfulness, and we can even talk about video games, oddly enough.
About what?
Video games.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
We'll save that towards the end. But it's in the peer review, and it works. Yeah. Okay, gratitude. Another form of, this is the same theme. I've only got 2 or 3 themes to talk to you about. We're going to decenter again.
Yeah.
But specifically in the laboratory, this is the great work of Marty Seligman. If you can get up in the morning while you're busy confronting your arthritis, write down 3 things you're grateful for.
Yeah.
When you are grateful for something, you necessarily have to remove your experience because it always has a target. Right. I'm grateful for another day of life. I am grateful that my grandson is not a drug addict. I mean, it can be almost anything. Yeah. But I'm grateful that, I have been privileged to live in the century I'm living in. There's never been a better time to have a dental problem than where you are right now. Right? I've done it in the 16th century. How much fun was that? I mean, there's so many things you can be grateful for. And Marty Seligman says write down 3 of them. He says that's one. He also suggests a gratitude project, which I think is extraordinary because he's tested this. And this actually has an echo, what we sometimes call far transfer effects. 6 to 12 months later, you're still feeling the effects of this. This is what he says to do. If there is a mentor in your life, and you could be, 60, 70 years old. Some mentors are still around. They're all at the universities, right? And that person, that mentor really meant something to you. You are to write her a letter and tell her that.
Yeah, that's nice.
Write it down, but you're not done. That's not sufficient to get the far transfer, to get the benefit. If she's still alive, you go to her and you read that letter to her.
In person. Oh, wow.
Try not to cry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a very beautiful suggestion. Or even if you're living in opposite parts of the world, could you read over Skype or something? That would be okay.
I think anything that would get you to decenter.
Wow.
He does it live in person. And I'm a deep believer for social interactions.
That's lovely.
As much as you can.
Yeah.
What it does is that it decenters you. And it causes you, it's another form of the gratitude. And that's going to change your depression and your anxiety rates, which is something Marty was able to show. And when you do that, you're into the all-cause mortality zone once again. So it's of general health. But do it a couple of times a year. If you've got people that have meant something to you, I would argue, I did this once I finished reading it. My mom is long since dead, but she formulated so many of the reasons why I became a scientist. Even though she's been dead 30 years now, I wrote her a letter.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow. Sorry.
Oh, that's quite all right.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
In fact, I have a picture. Here's a...
that is such a wonderful thing that you should just said that, and that you read it out to her picture.
Well, there she is. She was an aspiring actress that never made it, so she became a 4th grade teacher. And when in Brain Rules, I'll give you the impact of this because this is something your
audience,
when I was 5 years old, she saw that I was interested in something. And I'm not sure if we've even talked about this or not, but it influenced everything I've ever done. So I wrote her a letter to thank her for this years later, which was I was just
oh, wow.
Just to be clear, but when I was 5 years old, I'd be interested in Greek history. Because she was a teacher, she had access to a lot of stuff. And the whole house would be filled with Greek history. So there'd be the Mycenaeans, and there'd be the Athenians, and there'd be Spartans, and there'd be Aristotle, and there would be, Thucydides, and they're just Doric and Corinthian and Ionic columns. And she just went nuts. Then my interest would fade. And she said she would just wait for that to go away and wait for the next one. So down would come the Greek stuff. And it would say something like dinosaurs. So then the whole house would just be filled with dinosaurs. That woman did that for me over and over again in such fashion that I got it. By the time I was 8 or 9 years old, I was doing it myself, that my curiosity was a premium to her for some reason.
Yes.
It meant something to her.
That's wonderful.
And I've never been able to forget that. And I wrote her that letter. That completely decenters me, doesn't it? Because I'm no longer thinking about anything related to any of the world things in my life, but just people that I had a privilege.
That's taking it to a whole other level of gratitude, isn't it? That's beautiful. Good suggestion. No, but I love what you're talking about here, though, because you're actually pulling a link between things that you can do and actually changing your physical reality. Like, it's not just you think gratitude, you're actually avoiding disease and illness. You're actually, improving your odds. So that's very powerful.
Well, the thing that has become since we last talked isn't so much that any of this was new. There's a few new things, but most of it is we're just getting the granular detail of this.
Yes, that's great.
In the brain sciences, you have 3 pots that should be in alignment. You have the behavioral work, and then you have that you can see on the outward. Then you have the cellular work when you're imaging things so you can take a look at the tissues. And then my field, which is the are the molecules, so you have to get into the genes and the DNA. Occasionally, all those three will line up. And when they do, you've got yourself a real life story.
Yeah.
You almost start with the behavior and then drop down into the cell and then drop down into the molecules. And that transit is what's happened in the last 4 years. So much of this stuff has been transferred. One really good example is the second thing we were going to talk about, and that's mindfulness.
Yeah.
Now, do we have time to talk about mindfulness?
Oh, yes, of course, please. Yeah, go ahead. These are, I mean, we're not going to go through all 12 because they're all in the book, and it's Brain Rules for Aging Well. It's a great book. Dr. Medina's website, by the way, is medinascientific.com. So if you forget the title and everything, we'll put it up there. But it's a really good book to read. But please, let's close on mindfulness because I think a lot of people are interested in that.
And once again, we have a warning.
Okay. Okay.
Put your
Warning.
on. Yeah, there are books out there. I think I saw one in the title, and don't. You can go on. It's fine. I think I saw Mindfulness for Dogs.
Yeah. Yes, I know. There's goat yoga these days, dog yoga, all kinds of things.
There's a lot of serious stuff out there. And the reason why I'm saying that as the lead off to what I'm about to say is because there's a lot of really good non-spurious stuff out there that works so well that one of the research instruments have been published and you could buy it on Amazon, and I'm going to recommend it. Mm-hmm. Mindfulness training, when done under the theoretical umbrella of John Kabat-Zinn, it's the guy who's pretty much started a lot of it, Kabat-Zinn, but then fleshed out in cellular, molecular, behavioral terms by people like Cresswell at Carnegie Mellon and others. There is a deep science in what I'm about to say. Okay. As long as you go out and buy mindfulness for your goldfish. Real stuff. Get stuff that's been actually peer reviewed.
Yeah. Okay.
There is a book I'm going to recommend. It's an 8-week course, and everybody over the age of 20 ought to take it. But particularly in your 50s and 60s, what that does, it is the research instrument. It's an 8-week course that teaches you how to turn off very large aspects of your brain and focus on things like raisins, or what's called body scan.
Yeah.
Or being able to center. It's an 8-week course. You've got to go through all 8 weeks to get it. But if you go through and have real-life mindfulness training, the randomized blinded trials that have been done on that research instrument, the John Kabat-Zinn dialect of brain science, of mindfulness brain science, has proven to be unbelievably effective over both arms of the stress response that people have. Now, when you get stressed, you have your choice of hormones that you can, the big one people know a lot about is cortisol.
Right.
And so cortisol, it's done on something called the HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary thalamus. Okay. You don't have to know this. Okay, adrenal.
The cortisol.
But cortisol, you probably do know. And mindfulness can lower cortisol levels for sure. But you have another stress response. Depending on how well you chose your parents, you will either choose cortisol or what we in the United States call epinephrine, you in the UK call adrenaline, is also another suite of, we call it the SAM, the sympathetic adrenal medullary response. And some certain practices might hit the cortisol and some might hit the epinephrine, except if you do mindfulness. It gets them both. Because mindfulness de-stress you, change your relationship with cancer, change your relationship with your vascular issues, change your relationship with depression and anxiety as a result. Mindfulness, believe it or not, is also a form of, this is one theme, Margaret, decentering. If you have to focus on what's going on with your nose.
Your breath, your breath.
The deep breathing, or in the 8-week I'm talking about, they actually literally ask you to buy a box of raisins. And,
raisins.
Look at, and I can show you how this works. I've done this for myself for a long time. I'm a deep advocate for it now, so I have a bias. So I have to.
Okay.
What would happen is I live in Seattle, and so my commute down. I work in my offices are in the medical school, so it's about a 25-minute commute. Seattle's getting extremely crowded because Amazon run up like weeds around here, and all they're wonderful people, but man, it's crowded now. So traffic can be a mess. And usually when I would just go, and sometimes it was some kid, because going to university, I have to forgive them, John. Don't you want to kill him? Don't, that kind of thing.
Not a good idea.
But I started working on this mindfulness stuff, and all of a sudden some kid cut in front of me, and that really could just infuriate me. I almost got into an accident. Instead of issuing invectives on his mother, instead what I did is I just thought of a raisin. It was the weirdest thing. I thought, there's this raisin.
And it was like, zoop.
And I went and I just focused on it. And all of a sudden, the breathing started to trigger in, and all the things that you do if you do mindfulness is a regular part of your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I was totally relaxed. I didn't kill him. He didn't kill me. I mean, and it was.
No, but that's a good point. I mean, meditation and mindfulness for me are the same because they use breath and that points of focus. But I'd never thought about a raisin. But give me the details on that 8-week program so that we can mention that in the article or send me the link and we can include it.
I can give it to you right now. It's called the Mindfulness Way, or the Mindful Way, I think it's called.
Okay, the Mindful Way.
First author is one of the research scientists. Kabat-Zinn wrote the foreword for it, but the first author is Teasdale, Robert Teasdale, Teasdale, and you can get it on Amazon.
Okay.
Any commercial interest in this at all? It's just that to me, it's so exciting in the world of the internet where you can actually get research instruments in the hands of people that could benefit.
Yeah. Well, somebody who's as passionate as you are about it, I'm sure is really convincing and compelling. So if you're interested in that, Teasdale, The Mindful Way, and I'll take a look at it myself because I've been practicing meditation for a while, but it's not that particular mindfulness. And it's becoming so, what's the word? Like approachable now. Like you can actually, it's not weird like the Maharishi. It's actually mainstream science that's supporting.
You think of mindfulness.
Just think of raisins.
Think of it, and fMRIs. Yeah, we've come a long way.
Okay, well, I think we've covered, I don't know, 8 or so of the rules, the brain rules for aging well. So a couple that we know are obvious, exercise and diet, but the other ones are pretty fascinating. Sure. I really enjoy chatting with you, Dr. Medina. I always do. You're just great to chat with. Thanks, Dr. Medina. If you enjoyed this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Our Patreon supporters help us to make a bigger difference in the lives of women over 60 all around the world. They get exclusive videos, live video shows, discounts, and much more. So please look for the link on this page. It is somewhere down here, up there. And join our tribe of women in our 60andMe community who are actually making a big difference in the world, challenging aging stereotypes. So thank you so much for your support.